yeah, yeah. Come on, take your body with you. It's a money weekend. Everything we wanna, we go do. We go do. Yes, let's we go do.
This is NLC News. I'm Jack Middlecott Davis, and this is your NLC update. Nord executed a masterpiece performance against Verdant this week, somehow managing to claw defeat from the jaws of victory, finding the only possible way to lose a game which they basically already won. Verdant would come out later and say that they had it in the bag the whole time trust. However, questions are now being asked by Nord management. Questions like, maybe we should stop drafting Jinx, Maokai and Azir every single game. Ruddy Esports caused confusion and anger amongst the NLC fantasy community as their 2-0 week meant that all their players achieved top spots for points this week, despite the fact that none of them had been unlocked yet. In education news, DMG were without their star top laner Bucci for their game up against Venomcrest due to the Swede attending his graduation. He is quoted as saying, "It's an unfortunate situation, but sometimes in life you have to prioritise. I've had fun in kindergarten, but I can't wait to start going to big boy school next year." It's game day 4 of Sumi and Fruity Fresh from Lightside's strike against playing normal champions. As of yet, their demands are unclear. However, Sumi has been able to answer the age-old question of what the dog doing with an emphatic not very much. Blue Whites and Natives combined for what can only be described as one of the 2v2 plays of all time. For news on Blue Whites, let's hear from Carvis with our exclusive Finn in the Field report.
Hello, Carvis here in front of the Meilahti National Hospital. According to reports, Blue Whites have been hospitalized here after another terrible week. According to rumors, Igget, the support player, has been restrained to his bed after insisting that support Jax is actually a very good pick. Back to you.
It was a joyous day in the Republic of Ireland, with Natives' win over Blue Whites showing that they weren't the worst team in the league. Sources say this is the best thing to happen to the country since the last time something bad happened to England. The incredibly chill, fierce Chillmax to the max with this chilling chill play against Skate Rot, sending chills across the entire league, while simultaneously simplifying draft prep for all of Venomcrest's future opponents. Just ban the Echo. And finally, let's take a look at the standings. With Nord and Venomcrest both dropping games, Ruddy's 2-0 week enabled them to enter a 3-way tie for first. Lightside, Verdant and DMG all sitting with 2 wins apiece in the mid-table. Natives managed to put some distance between themselves and the bottom of their standings with their first win of the split, and Blue Whites in last are still searching for their initial win. I've been Middlecott, this has been your NLC update, we'll see you later.
At SteelSeries, we make the headsets, mice and keyboards that the world's best gamers win the most with. And we've been doing it since way back. It's up to you how far you go, but whatever you do, go for glory.
Nord taking down Blue Whites to start the day, and you have no idea how loud that commercial of SteelSeries is for us. Just as loud as these headsets, by the way. Take a peek if you join in on the Fantasy League. You might win them. segue. Now, talking about the game, we need to discuss what happened at the beginning of the game, and then in the middle, and then at the end. Temporal, I want to get your thoughts at the beginning of the game, and then let's wrap up the pie.
All right, first piece of bread the sandwich is made on. That trade in mid lane, holy moly, the Corki was the answer to the Tristana. And Hunt showed no mercy in saying, like, you can't 1v1 this, even at Tristana's minimum range throughout the game, you know. Absolute zero scaling, just chunked out the Corki, took the potions. It didn't get better from there.
Yeah, we reach a point, though, where Nord completely take over the map middle court. It looked like it's not your map anymore. You're playing PvE, we're just playing PvP.
It really felt like it. They had this incredible sort of 3-lane press going on basically the entire time, constantly getting shoved. And what that meant is that Jonas didn't have any fun in his jungle, getting invaded on his second blue and then the one after that as well. And it just really made it difficult for sort of one of the shining lights of Blue Whites to actually impact the map, because he goes to clear that buff. Well, it's not just enemy jungle that's invading him. Romeo and XC are also making moves in towards him as well. And it can feel very, very constricting when you're playing on a team in that sort of situation. And I think for the first, I want to say 12 to 15 minutes, Nords were putting up this constant pressure that Blue Whites didn't really have an answer to.
I want to talk with Eggets. He's going to be the interview for Blue Whites. I don't know if he's already ready, because if he is, I would like to open up with... So let's toss him into the interview, because we doing a good segue from beginning of the game, middle of the game. Welcome back. I mean, we already have some sort of relationship, you know, we know each other.
Yeah.
I need to buy a dinner somehow. I want to understand, because we were talking about beginning of the game. It was really rough. Second half of the game, it was really, really rough. But at the end of the game, you guys didn't drop hands. You kept fighting non-stop. This is different. I keep seeing some differences. Talk to me.
All right. Well, the level 1 was a disaster in mid lane and bot lane. We took like
100%.
a couple of very bad trades. So the laning phase did not go in a way we wanted, and then enemy punished us for those mistakes. Good for them. They did really good invades and just kept pushing on with their lead that they got from just straight up from level 1. And there was like, it seemed like we could do nothing, but we got a good pick from bot lane out of Nille, and then later on in top lane we got a good fight that extended maybe a little bit too long, and then Tristana TP'd and got us in the end. So it didn't go as well as we would have wanted, but it didn't go as horribly either, so it's fine.
The interesting part of this is yesterday you told me already it's not about tomorrow, it's about next week, week 4. Yeah. You already had that in mind. So this game was like, we're just doing it. Don't worry. Keep your mind cool. It's about week 4. What does it mean to you?
I mean, we'll be much better prepped for next week as well. I think with these little improvements that we can make from these last 2 games, I think there's really big chance that we'll get our first win and first 2-0 next week.
Oh, okay, that's spicy. I wasn't ready for that one. But tell me something. This is quite important in terms of tactical point of view. If you were a champion, who would you be?
If I was a champion?
Yeah. This is important information. I need it.
That's a good question. I would be
know.
Jin, I think. I'm an artist from heart.
Jin? Huh.
Yeah. Or a
so if I say 5, you get confused. Is that it?
Yeah, man. I can only count to 4.
Well, at least we have something in common. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
I wish you the best, and I'll see you next week.
See ya.
This is really important. You know why? I can't do it. I can't.
Oh, ouch. I'm so sorry, Archer. I didn't realize there were 4 people in a game of League of Legends, and if we say the real number, your head might explode. That's awful.
What do you mean? The real number is 4. I don't know.
Of course.
Also,
this guy was bred on the Twisted Tree line, man.
Cat. I don't know. Cat.
Yeah.
Yo.
Cat. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Cat. So, yeah, late game, I really want to talk about the fact that Nord couldn't end it up. It looked weird, I would say. With the amount of lead they had, it looked kind of confusing. I know Blue Whites were not holding any punches. They were like, if you want to drown this, we go down fighting. We want to step down. That is interesting from Blue Whites. But it looked a little bit confusing from Nord, no?
Yeah, I think something that he gets is maybe just given away with his confidence for next week. I think the team, the unit, hasn't come together for Blue Whites. I think Nord are also still missing that last step. I think you put the other teams we were talking about for top 2 and 3 at the pre-show, which you should go back and watch if you haven't missed, because quite detailed. They're lacking that killer instinct. They're lacking the spine. And they just sort of sat there and like, yeah, we got the money. We need to hit them with it. Maybe. It's like the game plan, the execution wasn't there, and it was slow. It's a bit concerning. You should be able to cleanly finish out these games. Otherwise, you may be demonstrating that you're just having a bit of fun with it, and you weren't in that mode to win a game right now.
I agree. We're talking about one of the top 3 teams, and this is why we have to talk with someone that is in charge. Memento, open up. Let's talk about this.
It's not Memento though.
Yeah, as soon as I saw your face, I'm like, did I get swapped again? Like, oh, the interview changed 4 times. I need help. But do let me know, like, what is happening right now, because it looked a little bit confusing at the end of the game, and somehow just revealing that into other teams that are at the top of the standings, it could be like bleeding in a water filled with sharks.
I don't think we are missing something compared to the other teams. We are missing something compared to what we can be as a team right now. I don't think we lost to someone yet. Like, we lost mostly to ourselves. We are losing, we are overextending our, confidence sometimes, or then other times we are afraid, we are not pressing the buttons, or afraid to play certain champions. So basically, we are not afraid of anyone. Like, these 2 losses that we have are versus us.
That's an interesting take. And do you think those losses are just because they were, distracted, or the hubris got into the team, or do you think it's the team still trying to connect within itself?
I mean, look, of course there are issues, right? Of course there are issues. It's like this in every team. We talked about it in the interview. They are young. They want to fist fight. Sometimes they also fist fight with each other, right? But right now they are at a point that they can come together and beat everyone on the league, or fall apart, right? In Venom Crest we took it too slow. In my opinion, they should play it better and more cleanly. And versus, the other game that we lost, bro, like, what was that loss? Like,
that was an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah, it was on us.
When you look into the schedule, is there any specific game that we should be really on the lookout for, so we can see, like, the Nord you can beat?
I think the Nord we know we can be, it's gonna be in playoffs. I'm assuring you now. Okay. We need to take certain steps, and we don't want to be the team that does a really good game and then next week it does a really off game. We want to establish our steps. We are there. We are fixing it. I mean, you should be on the lookout for the Rudy game. In my opinion, we owe them some punches from last split. So we will be trying to win those.
That is the matchup I want to see between orgs. Yeah, that is the one I want to see, especially with the new blood and the solo queue-ness we talk, that little bit of solo queue-ness that some players still have. That is interesting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for the interview. I mean, you're kind of a Nico. Like, you transformed into 4 different people before the interview, so that was interesting.
I mean, I'm Sterios, but still we don't have it right. It's okay.
That's why I'm confused still, because it's Sterios. Okay. This is Sterios, by the way, yes.
It's okay. We will do an interview again with my name from the start. Thanks a lot, though.
I just wanted to create chaos. Thank you so much, Sterios. I'll see you soon. Have a lovely one.
Nord have successfully activated magical hats, and under the hat we picked was Sturgios, one of their coaches.
Oh, Because as soon as I saw the fix, I'm like, should I point it out? I don't know. Probably towards the end just to make it even better. Now, better looking into the next game is going to be Lightside versus Verdant. We have a lot to talk about this one, but also we need to bring up two specific players. So I prepared something before each game, and I didn't tell you anything. Surprise! Head-to-head between Fruity Fresh and X-Drop. We were talking about X-Drop at the beginning of the show, and then I want to talk between these two. They're really different, but look at the damage they do for the team. It's almost the same. They're so close with each other, and the goal per minute is also not that relevant, so they can do a lot without a lot, and this says a lot.
I think where the a lot comes from is different. Fruity Fresh integral to the Lightside identity. You know, they've taken the best bits of Rich Gang of NLC 2 last split, the best bits of Venom Crest Serpents from Four Nations, and they've molded something carefully. And Fruity Fresh is the swing that ends the game with these huge mages, these huge playmakers. X-Drop has been given a role on Verdant that's very similar, except I think the bigger plan isn't there. I think if you just throw fast AD carries and Ivan at a wall and see what sticks, sure, he's going to absolutely rail through damage, like the hands are fast, but it hasn't worked out quite the way we'd like. And I think that's sort of the difference between how confident and excited we are about them in this matchup.
Yeah, and I do want to sort of disagree with you a little bit there. I think that X-Drop has been integral. He's
great. He's fantastic. He should have won all his games.
Yeah, he has had winning KDAs in a lot of Verdant's games, even in their losses. But yeah, it's really a lot of the pieces around him, and I think that the fundamental difference between the two players, if you ignore stuff like champion pools, which obviously Fruity Fresh has got a crazy one, is that the team the Fruity Fresh has got around him on light side looks set up to enable him, whereas I feel for X-Drop, he is getting a sort of a bit of that, but it's not really all coming together quite yet.
I'll raise you a new one, because you talked about champion pool from Fruity Fresh, and obviously he goes for those AP and AD just like a wild card. X-Drop so far hasn't played the same champion a single time. He has 5 different champions, and in between those we have a Nasus as well. It didn't go accordingly, yes, I know, but he also did a lot of damage with that Nasus. It was top damage from his team, even playing tanky. So I think these two, in terms of champion pool, are still showing everybody what they can bring. So that's why I think these are the two masterpieces in this game. But then at the beginning of the show, you brought in the top lane, Middlecott, and I do believe these two are also important.
Yeah,
top lane is relevant again.
Yeah,
not too soon. Maybe
had to be inevitably, right? I think that for me, Elijah for Lightside is very much in the sort of mold of top laners that we've had coming through in the NLC over recent splits. Guy who'll play bruisers, play tanky-ish champions, but we're not necessarily talking about just being on duty every game. It's champs that have got a lot of agency in the early game. Whereas when I look at Shihan, I think something similar, but with a bit of additional spice. He is the sort of guy where if he gets an Aatrox and he gets a couple of early kills, he can turn into one of these sort of big primary carries, where I don't really feel that Elijah is necessarily that sort of player, unless it's on Cassante, in which case you can kind of just do whatever you want.
But that's the thing, Cassante for Elijah is on 3 times that champion and 100% win rate. Like, you gotta take it off. Like, you gotta remove that from the table. So far it's Corki, like the power ban. On the other side we see the way Skarnet and probably the Talia, they play that champion. Or maybe be careful with that all with Yazir, but also Tristana is an important coin.
Yeah.
So Azir has went through.
Yeah.
Shout out Lightside for getting rid of the Ivan that was part of Verdant's maybe slightly wonky setup. Maybe just helping them out here.
Maybe that's it.
Well, I think Dopamine is like a strong Ivan player in its own right. Yeah. I think the champion is absolutely obnoxious when it's fitted into sort of the correct setup. The Corki ban here from Lightside is doing a little bit of double duty because E-Roll is very, very good at that champion, even if it is very different. But yeah, Arshram, like you're saying, it honestly feels like a little bit disrespectful. E-Roll is incredible on the likes of Cassiopeia. He's incredible on the likes of Azir, and if he can get himself into a preferable matchup, I wouldn't be surprised to see Verdant actually last pick for him. Ban away a couple more mid laners in the second phase to ensure that he is enabled as much as possible could be a winning strategy. We know that X-Drop can perform, It's what he's been doing all split long. It's about whether Verdant can find that additional piece of the puzzle to get their composition working, to get them a win, which at this stage is sorely needed.
He's playing a new champion already with the Zeri. I believe XOP will be the one piloting that one unless we get a wild card, just as we had in the interviews. But instantly, Poppy being picked versus 2 mobile champions, and yet again, Elijah. I mean, if it works, why? Why stop? I mean, it's going to be reworked, by the way. Xante is going to be reworked. There are words in the shadows of that, just pointing it out.
Yeah,
so
the main answer in the scanner is gone. So Lightside not going to let it slide to the second half, not going to let that be a ban. Interesting.
What about
to
Rumble,
see.
though?
Ooh.
Oh, do it. Oh, do it. Oh, do it.
Oh, spicier than Rumble. Shihan wants to do it with his hands, wants to do it directly.
Batman versus Superman. He looks him in the eyes and says, do you bleed? Let's see if Elijah will bleed with Xante. But now on to the second phase of bans. Anything worth pointing out?
Yeah, again, well, I think Verdant haven't obviously picked up their mid laner yet here, so I think for Lightside, those Cassiopeia bans, those Azir bans are really sort of appealing to me at the moment. And then for Verdant, I think you're going to want to enable this Darius as well. So often we see Dariuses have very, very strong laning phases, but just get into points where the champion can't access with his damage in later team fights. So stuff like the Aurelion Soul, incredible at creating these zones that you just can't walk through in team fights. Not a surprising takeaway, especially when we could see this Varus go into the mid lane and Fruity Fresh pull out the Star Mage.
I mean, like the Aurelion Soul drop from Verdant. They're recognizing that Fruity Fresh has now got, 2 melee and 1 short range approach champion to play with. I wonder whether they'll get the spice, and as the timer ticks down, a Swain ban would have been essential, and it's a Ziggs. Lightside can play Fruity Fresh's favorite champion, his most played in his 2nd division season, and he's got melee champions to become that black hole.
He also can bring in the dragon that he brought yesterday, so it's another one. He talked about Smolder on the interview, he loves it. Also, this Varus could be a triple flex if Xante was not alive. Sumi played it, Fruity Fresh played it, even Elijah, but yeah, Xante exists, so I don't think that will be it. But now that the bans are off, finally we get to see Azir still open for Adol. Azir, Zeri, and Darius, that would be a threat.
That'd be crazy. Yeah. Both teams have covered their melee approach with their 2nd phase of bans. I love the Azir coming in over the top, defensive and offensive over that position. We're going to see probably a load of fist fighting around mid wave before a Dragon. I think Dragon 2, Dragon 3 looking pretty spicy. I'd love to see that Swain, but I think the Varus kind of has compromised it. I'll have to see now. Because if I am into that Azir in mid lane, both junglers have approach. You have to be so careful.
Yeah, and the thing about just slamming the Azir here is there aren't many matchups that I think Sumi could actually leverage against him, so I think Verdant are sort of happy to take it. It likely would have been their 5th pick anyway, so you leave yourself open with support counter pick in the bot lane, where enabling the Zeri getting her through a notoriously weak early game is going to be very, very important.
With
stuff like Rel taken off the table, I think that the Nautilus is a fine default here for Fastlane. I think he's had mixed performances, but generally been seeing good stuff from him, and the guys are locked in, assuming for Fruity Fresh.
I mean, we believe.
Yeah, probably, most likely.
So yeah, most likely. Now, will he play it AD or AP? I think we should be done with AP, Kaisa, but...
Yeah, I think the only one we've had in the NLC so far has been that hybrid, has been Nash's Rageblade. And it does kind of fit the damage profile. Varus, the Blight stacks, percentage health as magic damage. But then, I think whatever suits best, because Kalmsky is going to be coming in over here. And Fruity Fresh's Kaiser really vulnerable to Leona, like magnificently vulnerable. There's not going to be a cleanse coming away from Fast-Legged on this Nautilus. There's not going to be no Mikhails. So I'm a bit confused as to where Lightside are going to be backing up Elijah and Bartel doing Fast-Legged as they throw forwards. It's going to be a bit more fragile for Lightside, and Verdant have to try and get a bit of a flank on.
Verdant might be able to pull a 3-3 by the end of this game, or even LLS just jumping into the top of the standings. This is a team that is not stopping, and they keep climbing, and they have some weird picks, just as we've seen. Really fast from both of you, starting with you, Middlecott. Who do you think is going to take it after the champion select? If you had to predict anyone right now, who would you pick?
But right now, I'm looking at Shihan Darius, and that is just calling to me right now. This kid is
Makes sense.
absolutely insane on this champion, and I think he's got a setup where if he snowballs, he can take that and start chopping off other people's heads and not just Elijah's.
So you got that one going for you, and Temporal, give me the
I
prediction.
think outside of like Vi overextending massively and giving Lightside like a gift, it is really so much harder for Lightside to execute than Verdant. I think if Lightside are going to do it, it's going to be deep, it's going to be late game, it's going to be like fast legs, like chaining up 3 people, like a massive ultimate. The ease of execution really does lean towards Verdant, despite both team comps having that sort of brutal melee engage. So let's see Shihan put on an absolute masterclass.
We talked about this team needing that click in order to jump into the top of the standings. This could be it for them, or this could allow Lightside to run a little bit further away from the middle of the bracket. Without further ado, tossing it to the Costas Initialize. And Rudud, how are you doing, my dude?
Hey man, I'm doing great, honestly. This is Darius in the top lane for Shihan. They specified it on the desk. Mr. Spin the Block is back. He has got his Darius in his pocket. And this game, you know, it's got some options for the Darius, that's for sure.
And I think the desk called out saying, look, there's a real world here that if Shihan gets rolling, it's going to get very spicy indeed. But to find out exactly how spicy we need to get to the Rift, prepare yourselves for a hot pot experience in top lane. I now kind of want like a Chef Darius skin. Now I went for this kind of hot pot allegory, which I feel, you know, I've had better allegories in my life.
What would the Q be? Or what would the bleed stacks be? Like, it'd surely have to be a food,
I think
right?
like a chili. I think it does chili stacks, isn't it? You're like swinging around a frying pan.
Yeah, no, I'm down.
And you get like the oil sizzling sound when you swing around.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And then, you know, you just ulti somebody and you make a chip pan fire, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of vibe. That's my thinking.
Well done.
And you have like some tongs to drag people towards you. I can get behind that.
It's a great job all around, honestly. We'll have to see whether or not
that was really fast.
I mean, it's just what we do, you know, on the fly, nice and easy. We'll have to see whether or not Shihan can live up to that. He's got the Ghost in the top side as well, so he's going to be TP-less this game, but by way of trying to close down the gap onto Sumi, well, maybe not onto Fruity Fresh. That one should be a little easier said. And done, honestly. The Varus is going to be your real issue through Chain of Corruption, through the slows of the Hail of Arrows, but Kai'Sa typically very short-range AD carry. Plays into the hands of a Darius as well. No Ghost as well for Fruity Fresh, so it might be pretty tricky for them to kite out the Darius specifically, but once again, with this Hail of Blades, it looks like we're going to be seeing it geared more towards a Nash's Rage Blade poke W style of build.
Yeah, and we'll keep our eyes on what the builds will end up being. So, of course, mid lane Varus has not been a regular thing for a little while, but I was musing, actually, when we saw the Varus locked in, actually, it might well be a mid lane Varus. Something I know Sumi does like to do occasionally, and it's something that way back in the day, I'm talking like Season 6, guys, now, which is like, oh god, you know, 8 odd years ago, if I've done my maths
that was
correct.
last week, actually.
Yeah, last week, thank you, I needed that. That was something that Kuro used to do into his ear. Of course, back on Rocks Tigers, it was a really good answer because he used to outrange the Azir and he doesn't get to trade back as easily. He's gone towards the Grasp to try and keep the HP up, but I don't know how easy that's going to be. But with the Grasp, I wonder if that's going to end up being a tank Azir build, maybe?
I think most Azirs are just taking the Grasp just for the HP, not particularly worried necessarily about opting into a Frozen Heart or anything of that ilk, much really for the build. Just taking the Grasp so that you constantly, if you get procs, you're getting HP as you move later into the game, and that's about all the value that they're looking for from it. But that being said, you know, it's good value all the same.
Keep our eyes on it as we go, so a lot of comets already landing. The Hail of Arrows slow makes it actually quite difficult to dodge the comets, particularly without boots, or unless you're willing to commit a shuffle in, but that can be quite a lot of mana in the early game for the Azir, so to do that right now. And something that Des called out, and I know we were kind of musing about too, is the kind of ease of execution from both comps. And the fact that you've basically got the easiest point-and-click engage in the form of a Leona, Vi going forwards, and then Zeri in his ear, just do DPS from behind. That feels pretty straightforward from Verdant, with the kind of side dish of spice from that Darius. But I'm kind of curious then how you think Lightside Comp is going to play into that, because, you know, they have got some good pick themselves, they've got the Poppy to try and mitigate some of the dashes, but I feel like it probably does require a slightly higher barrier of execution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you've got Varus mid, when you've got Kai'Sa in the bot lane, you are playing definitely more towards poke, regardless really of how your build paths are going to look to go. Whoa, fast legs.
Oh boy, but hang on, knocks him back over the wall. That puts Zeri in a difficult position. The Ignite comes on down as a decent stun, and Karmski does their best to walk on out, but that means X drop down both summoners early on here. Level 3 Poppy, it's full build, we all know it.
But Drop will be thanking his lucky stars right there. That was a kill every time on my screen. If Fast Leg lands that hook, there's not really anything for Drop to do. Burning both summoners, but staying alive, it's a win given the situation that they were in. Hey man, you're not wrong.
I'll avoid the falsetto for now. We'll leave that till a little later in the day, eh? Elijah up here, getting the wave shoved into him. Is it I don't envy him in this matchup. It's not going to be a great time as the Cassante, at least until you get a few more items, but should, you would expect, be pretty Darius favourite. But Elijah... Yeah. What I was about to go on to say was more the side that Elijah, on the whole, has done a really good job of stepping up and actually making little moves like that on the Cassante a few times. Does get pulled back in, but there's not a lot of mana for Shihan, so it does be a good chunk and a bleed proc or two.
Yeah, Shihan was looking for a recall before this anyway, so, you know, a little bit of do-si-doing under the turret, getting, you know, definitely a little bit checked here, making sure that he's completely on top of the situation and will not hurt either. Both of them get to go back to base, but remember, Elijah has that teleport, so whether he chooses to expend it here, maybe get a bit of an advantage on the wave state, is the case. He does end up picking up the teleport and using it, so now Shihan has to walk his way back to the top lane and isn't going to be able to control what happens with it necessarily.
Could prove to be interesting to track as we go on in, because the game has been relatively stable, at least compared to last game where we already had pretty unspeakable violence occurring on our screens by this point. Yeah. People had died under their tier 1s as big invades with blue buffs happen, but Bartoli is back towards the bot lane again, and maybe I just summoned the violence a little later, that's all it is. But Dopamine is around, going to need to show his face though yet.
Just, you know, hovering like a happy fly, one of the flies that we like to see in the British summer, where they're not particularly a bother. But you know, they're
wait,
there
sorry,
still.
no. Stop, happy fly? We're happy to see flies? What, like?
No,
Rudy,
but there are occasionally
okay
flies that don't do anything. There are occasionally flies that just chill. They're not a nuisance to you. They just, you know that they exist, they make their presence known, and then they're like, alright, I'm done here.
I'm going to need to raise a formal complaint and potentially ask for a well-being check on Middlecott. If you're a person who's okay with flies, but well-being checks might have to go towards the top lane. As Elijah somehow wins out, Shihan wins, and the Omnivamp is there.
Just what on earth was that? One turret shot too many there for Shihan. Had flash, did never expend it. Many an Untofu strike could have been dodged, but valued the summoner spell that little bit too highly, and Darius, a champion known for his prolific nature versus tanks, falls versus the biggest tank of them all.
Yeah, but it's not just a tank, it's a tank and a turret, and it turns out that extra bit of firepower from the fortification helps bring down the Darius. Shihan, a player who, known for this champion, on that Ruddy squad that looked so good, burned so bright, and burned out before they could really make a showing in playoffs a year or so ago. Now on another roster, but this Verdant team has just really been struggling to come together and string together a sequence of wins, and plays like that have got to hurt.
Yeah, and you know, whenever Verdant have been looking for those wins, it's important to remember where they're coming from. It had been X-Drop and Karmski, and we look at where bot holders spend a lot of their time so far in this early game. It's 2 ganks down on the bot side. Drop, burned barrier, burned flash very early on into this game, so setting up for a Zeri carry, not as easy for Verdant as they might have anticipated. Might need a little bit more assistance from Dopamine, might need just a little bit of extra leverage down on that bot side to give him space, to give X-Drop that opportunity to be the carry that he kind of has to be for this Verdant squad at this stage.
I was told he was baiting going for that Raptor camp steal, would get him towards level 6, but with Dopamine turning up, it would have been a bit risky, and the level 6 already secured by the Vi would make the place a little bit dubious unless the Steadfast Presence was used well.
Oh, a potential roam actually out of the top lane from Shihan. This wave is being frozen on him. Has to go for the fruit to try and break this at some stage. But again, Bartholdi seems to be on the right side of the map. Moves his way back down to finish off his red buff though. So a little bit of free time for Shihan. Bart making his way down to this bot side. And again, I mean, if you top laner is already winning, you don't need to spend the time to go there. You can continue to make this Zeri's life miserable. That's exactly what I'd be doing as well.
At least X-Drop has managed to survive the lane, having had that flash and barrier burned. Flash just came up a second or two ago, top lane. Looks like the flash had to be burned by Shihan as Elijah once again decided he had to go all out. Hang around in this bush, maybe try and catch out the Cassante, overstepping there, and maybe actually have to turn our ways towards bot lane. As an attempted look at that blue buff, but once I pull away, footwork is just about in time. Shihan's bait doesn't work out.
Yeah, and with this Bramble Vest being picked up for Shihan as well, the healing from the Decimates, the outer ring of that Q, going to be a lot harder to come by. If you start off your trade with it, maybe you can find a slightly extra boost, but again, really not an easy lane now for Shihan. A lot of armor has been picked up with Bramble, Chain Vest, and the plated steel caps as well. The long sword for each component trade is not favoring Shihan right now.
Yeah, those swords are going to break apart on that armor, it feels like right now. And Cassante always turns resistance to damage every time you press the R button, which is pretty alarming to be managing right now as well. So it's a relatively quiet early game, but I think that top lane should be a bit of a worry. Could still all turn around, of course. Darius, once he gets first item, will have another chance, I'm sure. But for now, Lightside playing it slow, outside of the couple look-ins from the Poppy towards the bot lane.
And when we get the opportunity to talk about players specifically and about some of the exciting parts of this Verdant squad for me this time round. Obviously, Erol being brought back in to the Verdant roster for this week, subbing out Harbo and making his return to the NLC. First game he got Cassiopeia, wasn't quite able to do enough to find the win for it, but game number 2 gets the Azir, which was probably permabanned from him the entirety of the split that he ended up playing for Verdant. This pick for this mid laner specifically was the wonderkin almost, the hand in hand. You saw Errol, you thought Azir, and even when making it to EMEA Masters, the play-in stage there at least was making his name for shuffles in the late game. So you can never really count them out. You need to make sure that Verdant are prioritizing getting drop ahead. That's something that's worked for them for the majority of this series, but if push comes to shove, you've got that spare backup carry in the mid lane as well, and we know that Erol can perform on this Azir.
Grub taken, but I think Bartholdi needs to think about backing away. Likely going to be at least 4 secured now by Verdant, but LLS are here to try and compete. Elijah coming on down, flash for the hook, does land it. Steadfast presence afterwards means it's a dead fight. Dopamine lacking that critical substance because there's nothing to be happy about there.
And once again, just not burning summoner spells. Dopamine could have flashed that hook, was channeling the Vault Breaker, could have used either one of them to get away from that Nautilus Q, but fast leg, fast on the approach, takes down the Vi, and as soon as that hook connects, no way out. Solid collapse there from Lightside. They secure themselves a couple of grubs. Going to be the mites still for Verdant. Lightside pick themselves up a couple of grubs. They're going to also look to take this dragon, but Verdant didn't really use anything in that fight on the top side. They might want this.
And now on the other side, Sumi gets engaged on into the Solar Flare, but the follow-up just hasn't been available. Erol beginning to shoot out as Bartholdi does begin to escape with that phase rush. Damage back is good, fast-legged. Goes over the wall alongside Dopamine, trying to stay alive, just about backing away. Sumi, flash, continuing auto as X-Drop, throws out a lot of burst fire. The lightning crashes there as Elijah on the other side of the map, gets a solo kill over the wall. Sumi gets the arrow, shuffle away. Sumi is sumo slammed into the wall. Bartholdi thinking about flashing on over, will not do it. Nearly gets knocked to the tower, goes Karmsky, but he is calm enough to get away with it, and Verdant abuse the fact they have more ultimates available and come away with the fight.
The fight down on the bot side looking very favourable for Verdant. Find the fight, find the dragon, a couple of kills as well, but that top lane, it's getting more and more dangerous now for Verdant. Light side, they've got Elijah, who seems to have taken down Shihan with very little issue. Went all out, sure, but looking at the HP there, it really doesn't like Shihan had anything to say about that fight at all. Fortunately, I think for Verdant, I'm looking at the compositions. Azir, Zeri, they are champions that can deal with tanks. Maybe not tanks that can also 1v1 you very easily, but for the most part, there have definitely been worse jungle, or rather mid lane and AD carry combos to take down on a Cassante.
Yeah, and early gold onto the Azir, who's already picked up some Fated Ashes after that Nash's Tooth. He knows what the assignment is this game, and it is going to be likely managing this Cassante frontline. Has proven so problematic. Little note on Fruity Fresh here as well. Not a Nash's Rage Blade build or anything on the Kai, so it's actually going towards the Muramana first here.
So
it's slightly different looking. Yeah.
From here, typically you just transition into raw damage of the magical type.
Yeah.
Companion can come through in terms of the Ludens. You just go Rabadon's Death Cap. You're just wanting as much flat damage as possible. Don't get your E evolved with this build at all either. It's literally just as much damage as you can get, and that's about it.
That'll be the value. Gonna try and get that. The Cull just cashed in as well on the gold lead. Even enough at this point. A lot of gold kind of claimed by Verdant in that fight, which was beginning to slip away from them after some of the solo kills had begun to run on through. Mid lane, item and a half for the Varus as well, who is continuing to be a bit of a menace as well still.
Absolutely. And will continue to be for a long portion of this game. As long as you can find access to the right targets, that Varus, even the Vi. Honestly, looking at people that are building armor this game, nobody's going to have some for a fair while. Darius is going to be more geared towards bruiser builds. Dopamine has the option to go for a bit more of a tankier build if they so desire, but with your Darius being so far behind, maybe you're just going to value a bit more damage on the Vi as well. But the Varus, the poke's going to stick is the TLDR.
Big knock up, Dopamine taken low. The Ignite comes on through, ult on in, but the Vault Breaker doesn't work. Does get the kill, but the turnaround as Errol is here under the tower. Will get both carries. That's a huge moment for Verdant.
And the turret to boot. Now top tier 1 does get traded. Looks like I have to take a quick recess post-fight. Errol, though, swooping in, now 4-0 on this Azir, that secondary carry that we'd highlighted for Verdant, one that had a bit of a quiet return to the NLC yesterday. Certainly looking to make himself a lot louder here in the second match of the split.
Definitely on a very iconic champion. Welcome back. We're still here. When we know more about what's going on, we'll let you know, but it does give us a moment to break down what's happening, because the early game was looking pretty solid for Lightside. Hell, that play on the bot lane was looking pretty good, but Kaisha doesn't have a lot of damage yet and tried to get a kill onto the Vi and gets comboed.
Yeah, I remember I used to play this Kai'Sa build a lot, and I was the bane of existence to the friends that I used to play Kai'Sa with, because for the first 2 items in the game, I'd go, this champion's so useless. Why am I not just building AD? Where's my Kraken Slayer? Where's my Ginsus? All of this. And then I hit second item, and I am become the opposite, but still the most unbearable person in the world, because I feel like Thanos. The second item's finished. I'm launching Ws from 7 screens away. I'm sitting back, loving life at that point. But we're not there yet, unfortunately. The Kai'Sa's still just on Muramana. Don't have any real upgrades. You've not got the damage to go in like that and think that you can get in and out really quickly.
They do at least get one back, but it's still both of your carries gone. It's another couple kills over to Errol. On Azir, of all champions, this guy is probably notorious mostly for, of course, the Cassiopeia is another champion is very iconic for it. It's a bit more unique to him. But when he was really popping off in the NLC in prior splits, it's often been on the back of a good Azir performance. And 4-0 with a 8-stack Dark Seal, that is exactly what you want to be seeing if you're a Verdant fan.
Have to see whether or not we end up getting a Medjai's on an Azir, not typically the core item that you'd go for, especially with how willing we see Azirs to dive into the backline and make themselves a very vulnerable target. I'd love to see Azonius at some stage for Errol, but as you mentioned, the Liandry's getting picked up, knowing that this Cassante also going to be a bit of an issue. Looks like whatever
it's all a bait, guys.
Facing, not been solved just yet.
Okay, what happened? We clearly didn't hit the button at the same time again.
No,
so...
I know. Honestly, it's a missed input from me. I don't think I've hit the button yet.
Okay, so it's your fault, basically.
Yeah,
so everyone
absolutely.
out there who are wondering why we're in a pause right now, message Rude Dude. He'll tell you all about it. His Twitter DMs are open.
It's at Middlecott is me on Twitter.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's
Send
him.
your frustrations to that account
directly
specifically.
There. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and I'll get back to them just as soon as I can.
That's really interesting, because that's my...
Is that your complaints department as well?
Yeah, so that's the PO box I have for complaints. You know, when
Yeah.
people don't like me as a person, I tell them to message there, and I'll try and deal with it as soon as I can.
Yeah, and it's crazy how few responses we actually get from that as well.
Yeah. Look, I'd say Duckling, but no one would believe that. Who would have a name like that?
No, that's a fake name. I don't know
That's a
anybody
fake
called
name.
Duckling.
I feel like you'd have to be such, a weird person
It's almost
to name
like
yourself that.
you'd have to be from like a fake country like Denmark.
Yeah,
right? That doesn't exist.
I bet they're actually a Swedish supporter too. I bet they really like teams with Swedish players on.
Yeah, that seems the vibe. I bet they have a poster of Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the wall.
Yeah.
Just waiting above the bed, wake up in the morning, praise Zlatan and then carry on with their day.
Yeah, Duckling's about to cycle over to my place all the way over from Denmark, the country. That
Oh, and we got the
exist, just to yell
cycling
at
in
me.
there as well. This was perfect. We've nailed the
Yeah.
roast.
I will never give context about cycling. You have to ask Duckling about that himself. But just know.
If
Just
you've got a
know
spare, if you've
that
got a spare year of
cycling
your
is like a-
time, then yes, ask Duckling about that.
Just poke that button, guys, and experience that wonderful response. Have got word from production. Looks like there was a player DC issue, which obviously is pretty problematic. So we're going to hopefully get that resolved shortly, and the game can continue from there. And having spent the last 2 minutes mocking our colleagues,
Can I mock Arsha
maybe
on
instead. Yeah, go if you want to go for it.
I mean, the perfect thing is that now at least one of the teams is playing League of Legends that Arsham can understand. Previously, 5 players on the Rift. Now, at least if they
Yeah, of
reload,
course. Yeah, I can only count to 4.
can only
Yeah.
count to 4. Arsham might
Yeah.
be able to keep pace with the game. Obviously, unfortunately, they've had to pause this, so this is a little bit anti-Arsham propaganda from the NLC players, but that's
that's
with
very
them to
rude,
take
really.
up.
I feel as well that he obviously is a musician. I think the only thing he can play in is 4/4, and jazz in general just terrifies him because anything in 5 doesn't 4. Anything in that it's just too much for him. I think it
However-
it probably brings him to tears.
Loves a waltz though, You get
Oh,
some
really?
little mix with the 3/4, right? That's the typical time signature for
It's true. It
for a
is.
waltz, So quite happy to slow it down a little bit as well.
Actually,
I'm
is
sorry,
he
that
okay
was-
with the number 3, or is it only the
Yeah,
number
yeah,
4
it's
he's
up,
okay
up
with?
to 4. No, he's up to 4.
Up to 4. Okay,
Anything
that's
through
good for him.
0 through 4, happy zone. Loving life.
You
Past
need to
that-
see his collection of 4 and under Lego sets. It's
Actually
incredible.
true. It's crazy what that man can do with a One Piece. Just the little square. Jeez. Goes crazy.
Oh dear, he's got to just make sure he reads those notifications about small pieces and choking hazards because he's not that bright really, is he? So he could be in trouble.
All right,
We're
do you want
never
to talk
being
about the
invited
game
back.
now?
Yeah, let's move away. I think we have genuinely spent the last 5 minutes just throwing random insults at people we are nominally
Yeah.
friends and colleagues with, but that's half the fun of this work. This game, as it stands, is beginning to devolve a little bit. We're seeing a couple members get very, very fed. On one hand, Elijah has been monstering the Darius matchup.
Yes.
And on the other hand, Errol.
And it's weird because Errol hasn't been monstering the mid matchup particularly,
No.
right? In the isolated 1 versus 1, but Errol has been winning mid matchup enough to have better moves and have better rotations on the map. So by proxy, is winning mid lane in a roundabout way because he's being able to make his moves first and get out to the plays. And even if he's getting out to the play second, he's getting better ends of the bargains when he's gone in. He's picking up all of the kills, hasn't yet died, and that can't be said for Sumi. He was just picked up in that last scoop down on the bot side, had really not made too much of an impact on it either. So the disparity between top side versus bot side, it's really starting to show itself. And what we need to see is when it comes to the fourfold, is when this 5v5 comes through. If Elijah can find access to Erol and scoop him, kidnap him potentially, hey, you're probably going to take down the very fed member and you've probably come away with a 1-team fight there. But if that's not the case, if Erol's able to stay safe, that's when Lightside's life is going to get very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I think you have got tools to deal with the Azir. You've got, a fair amount of pick, the Nautilus, the Poppy, can stop him shuffling away. Once Kai'Sa gets another item, you've got tools to make that Azir suffer. And you do actually have a pretty good range advantage, assuming you can get there. But I am getting a little bit worried now that we are seeing things like Bart in particular look for plays on the Poppy and then not really turn that into much more than a burned flash or whatever. Being a little bit over-aggressive, and then the consistent damage from the Azir and from the Zeri is proving a little bit difficult to manage, especially as they start shuffling towards you, skating over walls after you. And that is still very tricky for the side of Lightside to manage, at least as it stands, especially because Elijah hasn't been in these last couple fights. It's the 4v4 on the other side of the map that we've been checking in.
Yeah, I think that when that 5v5 happens, it's going to be a really telling part of the match. I think that the properties that Bart is going to really enjoy is his ability to prevent engages. The Leona, for example, is one that is going to really feel the ramifications of a good steadfast presence. Similarly as well, a Vi tries to get in the Vault Breaker. If again you're able to stand in the right position as Poppy, your life as a carry becomes a lot easier because you've got somebody trying to escort the Vi out of your face as opposed to being on top of it. And so far in this game, Shihan has been just fairly irrelevant, hasn't had anything to say in that top matchup, and when he comes into those 5 versus 5s, granted he's going to have Ghost, but he's going to have to work his way into the backline to try and find that fight. I think when you're behind on Darius like this, picking your moment is really important as well. You want to try and build up your stacks on a frontliner just so you have the 5 stacks, and then you look to explode into the backline with a flash, with a Ghost. And while they think, oh, I can just free hit this Darius, he's not focusing me, you hit the 5 stacks, you flash in, you start to go for the quick one-shot potential execute onto the carry, and if you're not ready for that as light side, that's a way where Shihan can still have impact even whilst being quite far behind.
Still no update as it stands. As a reminder, guys, the reason we are in this pause, there has been player DC, which is obviously not a great thing. So we're hoping that gets resolved shortly, but it does mean you're stuck with us on camera for a minute or two while we keep breaking this stuff down.
Say stuck with.
Okay, they're stuck with you. They're blessed to have me, and obviously it's a very humble, chill guy who has a low self-esteem.
Production went, all right, I can't deal with this guy glazing like that.
Get us out, get him out. Save the audience, yeah, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief as I stopped talking about myself. That's definitely a wise thing. Back to the ring we go.
We have a static shiv in this game for X-Drop. Now, do you know the changes they made to static shiv?
I know they were silly. I couldn't give you the numbers. What are the numbers,
I don't have the numbers either. But what I have was every stat got buffed, except the gold, which got, well, also buffed, but got decreased. So this item is back to being very, very solid if you're looking for something to get you through the early game. Drop used it very nicely through this game, has now picked himself up 4 assists as an advantage in CS as well. Static shiv is going to kind of do that for you in most games. And has now got to the point where it can continue to build up the crit. If this is an Infinity Edge, we're going to expect to see big numbers as well. And, just wanted to quickly touch on the fact that Static Shiv, A, back in the game, and B, back in this one specifically for Drop. More than happy that he's able to pick this up and effectively utilize it to get himself an advantage in the game.
Feels like Zeri in particular has always been a big user of the Static Shiv. You can go from this into a number of other items, but yeah, it's pretty strong. I think, was it 40% attack speed you get off Shiv at the minute? It's pretty busted.
Yes, definitely an item to be considering. Vayne as well, really good utilizer of that. I know that actually Kerberos, former NLC top player,
not him.
Yeah, big fan of Static Shiv Vayne at the minute. And of course,
why does Kerb always have the most degenerate builds of all time? Like, he is he's the originator, the progenitor of the Jack Show Varus top. I was about to talk about other things, but violence is occurring. Dopamine in trouble, gets to flash away. Karmsky gets a shove on the wall. Dopamine still alive. Fruity Fresh again cannot get the kills until just now. And LLS get to back away. The smite is dead, but Fruity Fresh will need to back and heal somewhere.
Yeah, HP bar's a little bit low across light side. Drop, however, still has the ultimate. I actually just wore off. Okay, good. I thought they ulted. Has now worn off, so it's definitely a little bit more difficult.
Red buff about to be taken. That should hit Bartoli a little bit. There's double control wards in the pit, but overcome light side. Elijah still got Ghost and all out. This could get very ugly very fast.
You see if they can find a way in. Smite still coming from the base now. Dopamine just respawned light side. They have the opportunity to take the Drake. It would be a second for either side. They've forced their way in. They've muscled out Verdant. Drop showing on that mid wave. Dopamine trying to barrel through here. Still a chance for a fight. Errol has that scoop.
Could get precarious. Here we go, another 5v5. The Solar Flare lands onto Sumi. Fantastic steadfast presence. Errol's slide is immediately interrupted. Elijah all out, stays alive, 2 dead. Poppy claims them both. Make that a 3rd, I believe. And that'll make Sumi a 4th there as well. A little bit baited, I think, by the kill feed. But either way, 3 dead. Light side are the victors. They claim a 2nd dragon.
Just as we talked about it, right? As that pause comes through, mentioning, right, the power of Poppy in this game. genuinely going to be very valuable if you can position wisely. Bartholdi sees his AD carry, or mid laner in this case, has been caught by a solar flare. All right, time for me to post up. Stands right in front of the virus. Steadfast presence in, prevents the Leona from getting in. Earl as well, not able to find the damage that would win them the team fight. The lack of lightning crash for X-Drop as well means he's not able to pump out that DPS that we know and love from a Zeri. Really solid team fight, the front to back, the power of a good front line stands firm, and Lightside managed to find themselves a dragon and a couple of kills as well.
Second item now complete for the Zeri as well. Edge of Night in for the Varus. Did I say Zeri? I think I meant Kai'Sa. I do apologize. The transformation not there on the Muramana, and there is an Infedge complete for X-Drop. So the game still very playable for Verdant, but it's going to be a bit of a frustration to have lost that fight when it felt like they potentially had an angle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm looking at the scores, you know, across the top side versus the bot side, let's say, for Verdant.
Yeah.
It's very apparent where the slight overextensions came from in the early game, and now they're feeling the ramifications of that later on. You know, deaths at this point are going to come in team fights, and you'd much rather that your Vi and your Darius die as opposed to your Azir and your Vi, so that the deaths at this point you can, I would say, accept a little more. Obviously, you don't want to be throwing your life away like for nothing, but there's more of an excuse to be dying if you are the Vi, the Darius versus your Azir and your Zeri. But then, you know, you contrast that to Bartholdi and Elijah. Neither of those two have managed to go down just yet.
Yeah, and now with a Warmog as well, Bartholdi, if you don't kill them straight away, he phase rushes out and waits 10 seconds, he's right back to full. Very difficult to chunk out the jungler and remove them from the board. Errol needs to be...
Yeah.
Okay, well, Elijah was looking to see whether Errol would keep shoving on forwards there, but he's wise enough not to overstep, and I think he would have had a Sun Disc anyway, so it would have been a little bold, I think, for Elijah to wall in there.
Sun Disc, some sort of an ulti, some sort of slide as well from Errol, trying to take down an Azir as a Cassante. In a long lane like that, maybe a little bit doable, but certainly not worth the time to try and find out. If it goes wrong, you don't really know who's got TP or who's willing to commit with no vision on the jungler. It's a situation best left unfound out about, let's say, as our attentions have been turned up to the top side. The Baron is live, no Drake on the map for another couple of minutes, so a little bit of sniffing between the two teams. Now AP Kai'Sa, okay, never mind, we got an ulti.
Get the charge into the wall. X-Drop throws down the lightning crash. Bartholdi chunked out, slowed down, gets over the wall though, and that means it's a 1 for none. X-Drop slides in though, looking for something onto X-Drop. Shoved into the wall though, but he's not going down. Big knockup with the keeper's verdict. X-Drop alive, into the backline goes Fruity Fresh, and ensures a wonderful vitamin injection into his own veins. Though all the while, Errol continuing to butcher people in the backline. Fast leg goes down. It'll be a bloodbath, a triple yes to Errol. But somehow, someway, it's a 4 for 4, and Shihan claims a tier 2.
700 gold for the Darius, and his team found a even fight on the other side of the map. Uneven numbers, but a trade that Verdant will be more than happy to take. This mid-tier 1 may pay the price, yes. But in fact, Elijah not able to deal the damage, not able to get in and get out in time, so leaves himself an opportunity to recall, knows that he's going to be synced up with his team when he leaves the fountain. Shihan moves up from the bot lane after having claimed that big bounty on the bot lane tier 2. And a triple kill for Erol, 7 and 1 now. Finally, the bounty is claimed, but a lot of gold picked up there as well.
I saw the flash and the teleport down, and Soul Point is now on the board, and you just burned a huge amount from the side of both teams, but importantly, no flash, no barrier on X-Drop, no flash, no teleport on Errol. You need those players to be able to stand and deliver and do what they did in that last fight, and that's going to be hard, having lost some critical abilities.
And the best part about that fight was, it was for absolutely nothing. Lightside just ulted Karmsky and incited violence. No objective was claimed. There's an opportunity that they could have taken the Baron afterwards. But, you know, with no Drake up for the next, or for the foreseeable 2 minutes, it was a little bit of a shot in the dark. Now we're getting to fights around neutral objectives that are going to have genuinely big ramifications, where Drake's up effectively now. Baron is also live, where, you know, those couple of extra minutes into the game making the Baron that little bit easier to take just because you've got more items, and lack of summoner spells really going to hit home for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, I think they just might Over towards the Dragon. Go the side of Lightside. Errol gets a huge wave, shoves towards the tier 2. It'll be Elijah who is tasked with dealing with that. Worth noting, doesn't have a teleport. And Baron on the minimap is being baited by Verdant. That's a lot of people in a bush, but the Fnatic Death Brush strategy will not work out this time because Sumi has a lot of tools to check bushes with arrows.
Many an arrow in his quiver. Now 3 items set on the Varus, and as you'd mentioned earlier as well, the Edge of Night going to be really useful for keeping him safe from the Vi. Now, of course, if Dopamine wants to kill the Varus, there's an opportunity very easily to do so. Smite will break that spell shield and allow for the Cease and the Tis to come through. But the flip side of that coin is if you're burning your Smite on the Varus, it means you can't burn your Smite in a 50-50, for example. So you need to do that sparingly if you know that you've got the pick there.
Dragon secured. That puts Lightside at soul point, and that in itself a significant win condition, especially when you're running with 2 scaling AD carries. Although I say AD carry, Kai'Sa in this capacity, especially because it's Fruity Fresh piloting, more of an AP carry again, but the point still stands. Infernal Soul would be a huge boon. 2 Infernal Dragons, honestly, is pretty nice.
Absolutely, right? Like, those stats go a long way, especially when you're looking at the amplification that's going to come through the Varus's building. Flat AD with this lethality, so you're going to get that extra bonus on percentages.
Has to burn the Ghost, aware that there was definitely a pick looking for him, as with the Hextech Flash being channeled by Fast-Legged. Will not be quite fast enough to cast the even faster-legged Shihan there, who used the Ghost, as I said.
Yeah, nice wordplay as well. But, you know, there's an opportunity there for maybe Fast-Leg to short his Hex Flash. One of the things that you can do with it, you don't have to channel it all the way to full. I'm not sure if that would have been the difference maker there, if they'd have just done enough to get over the wall or not. Either way, they burned the Summoner Spell, and Shihan likely never to go down there with Flash as well. Maybe an extra Summoner Spell could have been burned. Either way, though, the Kai'Sa very close to that Crypt Bloom. Going to be a very big boon once they do secure that one, especially if they're diving into the backline as well. That extra heal, and you're putting yourself in a fairly dangerous and compromising position. Certainly going to be very valuable.
Of course, the problem is Fruity Fresh going forwards, because they don't have the E upgrade, can often be in a position where you dive on in and you don't have the ability to escape as easily because you can't just turn invisible, which a lot of Kai'Sas come to take for granted.
What you really begin to rely on with this build is Azonias, so expect that as a 4th item, because instead of going invisible, you go golden, and you just aren't able to take damage for 2.5 seconds, and that's when you kind of go, team, I've put myself in a vulnerable position, please help, and that's when, you know, you either get bailed out or you deal with the consequences.
Yeah, you either turn golden or become golden in someone's pocket and use to buy items, basically.
Yeah, that's the long and short
laugh. That wasn't good. Don't laugh at that. That was poor.
I have to, unfortunately. It's broadcast.
Oh yeah, you're obligated. That's fair. Thank you. I appreciate
you made me sign
that,
the contract. Like, I have no option.
It's true. Was the blood too much?
The blood pact was actually my favourite part of it.
I'm so grateful. I thought it was a really nice touch, personally.
Making me sign puns that are bad and you have to do this, I was kind of like, are you sure?
That's
and then
the
you
cool
went,
part, yeah.
It is a blood pact. Ah, well, say less. I guess I'm in.
If you wonder what we get up to in our spare time, guys, maybe don't. It's not a good idea for your mental health.
Yeah, definitely not the smartest idea, unfortunately. However,
yes.
Smarter ideas for Verdant would be to turn their attention toward this bot side now. It is 2 minutes until that Dragon, but I'm looking at an Infernal Soul. I know we've already hyped up how powerful that's going to be for the Lightside squad if they can pick it up, but it can't be understated quite how strong Sumi already is, and the power of that Infernal Soul is only going to add to that.
Worth noting as well, Errol has picked up a Medjai's knows that if he can get this one fight going their way, it could be a huge moment in terms of his ability to really, really come online. 3 items for this area as well. Drop so close to carrying yesterday on the Corki. In position to do so again with the 3 items on the Zeri.
Big make or break fight in the wind. How they go?
They've gone super deep. It's on to Sumi, who stays alive. They've lost the jungle already. Shihan in danger. Errol dead. It's a shuffle, but it's too little too late. Shihan under the turret. Might get Sumi, but will likely die. There's nowhere to go. Oh, Verdant. It's looking like autumn. Everything's turning brown and dying off.
And the timing was perfect from Lightside. The second that Dopamine fires the engage, Holdy sends the Leona to Narnia. Kalmsky could never be a part of that fight, walked in to effectively die. Still has Solar Flare, there was just never a good angle to use it. Errol, Dopamine both still had their flash ready. They knew that fight was pretty much doomed from the onset, and like I say, just the timing from Bartholdi, the Poppy pick this game has done so much for them to keep them alive, and now to extend their lead so very far to the point that they can just take a Baron.
Sumi, unfortunately, still dead, so won't have the Baron to their name, but as an unlikely split push option, not going to matter that much in terms of the ability to shove the waves. So, worth noting, Dragon spawning in 30 seconds. The resets will be a little delayed from Lightside because they just took Baron, but with the empowered recalls, should be able to get out there already. And Sumi, because of the death timers, actually does get to get out on the riff and start shoving through mid lane nice and early. An X drop already jumped to 10% off 2 abilities. My lord. Hook lands onto Shihan. Oh, that's Soul. Shihan's gone as well.
You've effectively taken 2 members off the rift. Drop actually had to walk all the way back to base, escorted by Karmsky, to make sure that there wasn't a Prey Seeker that would take them down. Baron in their backs, Infernal Soul as well.
I mean, I've heard of, you know, the call of the void and feeling, you know, the abyss staring back. I think the problem what's in the abyss right now is a whole lot of firepower. This Kai'Sa online. The point of minimal damage is long since past. 3.5 items. Level 15, Fruity Fresh is delivering pain from an absolute mile away.
Yeah, this is the point of Kai'Sa where you feel like Thanos. You are loving your experience on Summoner's Rift right now as Fruity Fresh because you're never on anybody's screen, but you're chunking them for almost 800 HP a pop, and if you get 2 in one go, and if you park that plasma, you are able to do quite the sizable amount of damage. Now, I think they actually nerfed the cooldown a little bit on Kai'Sa W so that the plasma stacks typically wear off if you're doing it at such a range, but I think with the Crypt Bloom and the CDR that you've got, between that and the Ludens, you might actually be able to pop 2 in at once.
Of course, the other thing is other people can proc your passive for you. X-drop, that wasn't even the plasma proc. It's just half their HP gone.
Yeah, this isn't fun. This isn't fun unless you're light side. Then it is very enjoyable. Literally, don't see anybody lose half your HP gaming for Verdant.
I can hear the maniacal laughter from here. Fruity Fresh is causing some serious pain. Elijah will have to Pathmaker. The Solar Flare comes through, but it's only a slow for now. Up into the backline goes Dopamine, but again, the substances just aren't there. It's just depression they're finding right now. So much sadness and a lot of kills going the wrong way. A double over towards the Kai'Sa. Errol not going to be able to get enough. Gets a double kill himself, but a valiant effort is still not enough to win the game. A 9-kill Azir still falls by the wayside. Dethroned by the Daughter of the Void.
Lightside with a ambitious composition. We highlighted early on, definitely the harder one to execute on, but one that they managed to make work all the same. The poke from the Kai'Sa, poke from the Varus, and the engage from Verdant, just never enough.
Yeah, there was a moment in the mid-game where you began to think, oh, Errol's got 4 kills, the Zeri's online, but suddenly Kai'Sa has items. The lead on Bartholdi on Elijah as a frontline diff was just so much to manage. They are deservedly the winners there, even if, once again, I think Verdant did try and fight back and will once again feel really frustrated that they weren't able to get their advantages and turn them into something more.
Yeah, the turning point, really, that Dragon fight, I think Drake's fight number 3, or the Dragon number 3, really, that Lightside were able to take. But just good positioning on a Poppy seemed to be all that was required, and then the game became easy. We were highlighting and hyping up in the break that we were going to see this top side versus bottom side forward. It was going to be Elijah versus Erol. Now, this isn't a diss on Elijah, but it wasn't the Cassante that was the be-all and end-all of this game. Don't get me wrong, they were very strong. We're actually very much a menace in the team fights, but the difference makers really felt like it actually came down to Bartholdi and the positioning that we got to see from this Poppy.
Poppy W is a hell of ability, and it will earn Lightside the W themselves. But to break it down, we have to leave that to the analyst desk, and that means we have to cut to break. They'll break down this game after that, and we'll see you then.
Break it down, break it down. Step on the gas, let's get out of town. We're gonna break out and have some fun. We're gonna do what you never done. Oh yeah, yeah. Come on, take your body with you. It's a money with